It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Craig, I think I start with you today. And we experienced Liberation Day yesterday. President Trump announced international tariff on every country, I think, 10%, and then added on a kind of a more punitive basis significant tariff increases on China, certainly Canada, Mexico, etc. I think a lot of people are scared to death about all this.
Well, I am sure if the people didn't feel real concern when they went to bed last night, as they're waking up, they're feeling real concern as they contemplate, their own financial situation. And this is very much about individuals feeling better or worse, and I think this morning arguably worse about the economic situation. We've already had slowdown in consumer confidence. I saw one knowledgeable person on the economy the other day say, all it really takes is for everybody to suddenly just pause in terms of their purchasing until this settles out to create a huge economic downturn. The indexes have dropped dramatically overnight. They've opened dramatically lower. It's hard to find an expert who doesn't work for Trump who thinks this is a great policy direction to go in. I heard one governor saying, "Well, I think go read The Art of the Deal and wait and see." Well, hope that it's going to get better is not really a strategy. So I just can't imagine. I was thinking that this morning that the White House has a White House news summary that's produced every day for White House officials, including the president. I just can't imagine what that's going to look like today. I mean, there are no positive headlines. Nothing good is coming out of this. This is a completely self-inflicted set of issues that he's creating. Uh, and I think on another scale, it's driving people or other countries to our adversaries. I mean, China may be the great benefactor of this with trade relations that they've been developing over time. I mean, we look less reliable, we look less stable. Um, it kind of boggles the imagination, and I think the question is how rapidly will the Great Liberation Day begin to get chipped away at? And my sense is we may not get past the weekend before some of that happens, and what we see today could look quite differently in 7 to 10 days from now.
Well, I think I think this is the week that reality TV has met reality, both in the elections on Tuesday and in Liberation Day yesterday. I mean, it's not Liberation Day; it's Inflation Day, and that will be evident soon enough. I mean, as we all sit here, we're probably all getting poor, and most of the people watching this will be getting poor as they're watching it because the markets are sinking, dropping like a rock. Uh, as I listened to Trump yesterday in this sort of freewheeling rant uh, with all these numbers, Lord knows where he came up with them. He just makes them up. I mean, they have no reality, no relationship to reality. But what he's really doing is destroying an economic order that has been built up since the Great Depression and World War II, that has made us the strongest economy in the world. Uh, and it came to clear to me as I listened to him how basically how ignorant of history he is. He talks about the new golden age, but he confuses the golden age with the gilded age, the age of the robber barons. Uh, he would have done well to have read the great speech that Franklin Roosevelt gave to the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco. That's probably why I didn't read it, because it was in San Francisco. But in 1932, where he did a history of the relationship between government and business. And as Roosevelt said in that speech, you know, in the late 1800s, uh, we had economic policies, including tariffs, that were to nurture the building of an industrial machine in America. But we were an agriculture nation, and that meant we had a natural safety net. If the disruption caused by the tariffs or by the economic building of the industry threw somebody out of job, one, most people had land so they could, you know, basically, as Roosevelt said, plant their own gardens and sustain themselves. Or we had the homestead policy, they could go west, but we ran out of land about 1900 and we became an industrial nation. And when we tried tariffs again in 1932 or 30 with the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which Trump thinks was a wonderful thing, it just drove the depression deeper and deeper. I mean, he just, you know, uh, either he doesn't understand the history or he just probably more likely has you know, just lost about it. Even the great McKinley tariff, which he seems to want to go back to, raised prices, cost Republicans the Congress in the next election. They didn't elect senators directly in those days, but they lost the House. The consequences of Smoot-Hawley and the Depression, where it was decades before the Republicans won the Congress back, really, and they were really locked out of the House for 3 or 4 decades. So the political consequences are devastating. Look, the bottom line are tariffs or taxes on imports. And that's going to cause prices to go up. One of the other things, and I think this is important, that Trump uh, you know, implies that foreign governments and foreign countries pay tariffs. That's not right. Tariffs are taxes paid by importers, Americans who buy foreign goods. They're sort of what the idea is. They want to. It's to make foreign goods more costly, so they won't buy foreign goods. But you know, to change a world economy that is so intertwined, it will take decades. And so essentially what happens is American importers have to pay more for a product. Think about all the stuff we get at Walmart that's cheap and where a lot of middle class families and lower income families uh, shop. When those imports come from China and there's 54% tariff, the importers either have to eat that or pass it on. Well, most of them are going to pass it on. And then it goes to the wholesalers and it escalates. They're going to have to pass it on. And finally, it's going to go to the retailers, and Walmart's not going to lose millions or billions of dollars because Trump's tariffs. They're going to pass it on to consumers. So what does that mean? It means higher prices for all of us. It means that in the end, consumers pay the cost of the tariffs. It's higher prices, higher inflation, and that will they'll eventually consumers will buy less, and that slows down the economy, and that leads to recession or depression. That's why the markets are down. That's why the major investment houses this morning have increased the likelihood in their projections about a recession. Look, for Trump, it's his problem is that you can have a bravado like he did yesterday, have these big shows, the great reality TV, call up union leaders, make a big spectacle. But the reality people will see are going to be higher prices, less stability. Their confidence, as Craig said, is going down, and eventually slower growth. Uh, and that's not going to work. That's the reality. That's not going to work very well for Donald Trump.
Hey, Dave, I just want to add one quick thing. And, you know, the fact checkers were going wild after yesterday's Rose Garden speech and validating exactly what Al has said, and that the speech was full of falsehoods. The one that really stood out to me was that the president took aim once again at Canada and said, the first carton of milk that we send over there, we don't pay much on that, but everything else, it's huge tariffs, and we're not gonna take this anymore. Well, the fact is that Trump himself, as president, the first term, was involved in a negotiation which exempts a huge quantity of dairy products from any tariffs uh, going into Canada from the U.S. And and it's so large. There is a lot of trade on dairy products, but the amount is so large that what was negotiated that in fact no tariffs are applied. And what it makes me wonder is that this is one example, but there were so many. Is this policy built around fact, or do these people just kind of fool themselves into believing what the world is like and respond to this fantasy that they're living? Because this is not a fact-based administration, and it's doing real harm. Anyway, I just thought Al's points are right on target, and we've got to be dealing with a well-understood common set of facts if we're going to work our way through this.
Look, the other thing that I'm sure you dealt with when you were in the White House, I know during the Clinton administration, we had trade policies. We were, we did NAFTA and GATT and China, and we may or may not have done a perfect job, even though. I think we both get credit for NAFTA because it was negotiated by you guys and we just got it through. But the point is that for us, and I'm sure for Reagan and George H.W. Bush, trade policy was part of an overall economic strategy. In other words, our policy was, in general terms, fiscal discipline because we wanted to create a sound economic foundation for investment and growth, investment in people and technology so people could have the skills to take advantage of that growth, and trade to try to keep prices down. But Trump doesn't seem to have any strategy. It's just vindictiveness. It's retribution. He doesn't like these other countries, so he thinks he's punishing them, but he's really punishing us.
The other bit of news I did want to cover was the special elections in Wisconsin and Florida. And in Florida, it looks like the Republicans did well. They were able to strengthen their hand in the House with the election of two Republican representatives. Wisconsin was a totally different story. And Craig, I guess the role of Elon Musk and money and politics are interesting to me after those kind of results in Wisconsin, where it was the control of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin.
Well, you always have to be careful to read too much into these individual elections. However, there was a trend, and in Florida, yes, the Republicans won the two House seats that were up by, but well short of the margin by which Trump won in those congressional districts when he was on the ballot. And I think what that says in part is that when Trump's not on the ballot, Republicans could well have a more difficult time given the circumstances. Wisconsin, yeah, indeed was interesting. Clear win, a big win for the Democratic candidate running for the Supreme Court. And really, I think the loser of the night, big time loser of the night, was Elon Musk. This was a kind of ridiculous thing for him to go do. He was running around with checks for $1 million he was giving to individuals. And people just said, we've had enough of Elon. I think the Democrats also had a pretty solid candidate. I don't take anything away from her. But Musk's presence there clearly drove the margin of victory higher for the Democrat. And we'll see what kind of consequences that has. There's clearly stories coming out of Washington now that a large number of White House staff who've really kind of had it with Elon Musk are seizing on this opportunity to push him out. That, of course, is guaranteed as that leaks out to get Trump to embrace him for a while longer. But Mr. Musk has, as a temporary federal employee, has a 150-day shelf life. I think that shelf life is just about coming to an end.
Well, as Craig said, the election in Florida, Republicans won, but they won in two very deep red districts. And their candidates ran about 20 points behind where Trump ran just 5 months ago. And in one of the districts, there's a county is Cambria County, which has not gone Democratic since 1992 and went Democratic. And from what I understand, it's where a lot of veterans live. And that really goes back to the first point I made on what I call Inflation Day, which is that reality TV this week is hitting reality. And what happened in Florida and what happened in Wisconsin is is a referendum on what Trump and Musk have been doing. I mean, they've had this frenetic, really nasty campaign of retribution, with no rhyme or reason, cutting government. They've cut a lot of veterans programs. They don't seem to understand that a very high percentage of federal workers are veterans. The nutty on and off tariff policies have driven the market down and it driven consumer confidence way down, and prices have been going up, despite what Trump said yesterday. So that's the reality, and people see the reality. They don't like it, and one of the long-held traditions of American politics is that very seldom that it's almost always followed is that in that first midterm election, they throw the rascals out if they're not happy. It sure happened to us in 1992. It happened to Reagan in 1982. And I think this election actually is a lot like 1982. Reagan came in, had a real mandate. I mean, he didn't win the House in 1980, but he won operational control of the House, because in those days, a lot of people who are now Republicans still ran as Democrats. So we had sort of control in name only. But then we had the Reagan recession in 1981 and 82, and people voted him out. I think the consequences of the economic reality and the nastiness of the Trump administration, and I put a big emphasis on that, because as I sit here, obviously I never liked Trump, but when I watch what he's doing, it's almost as if he is intentionally trying to pull the string of his opponents with every action. I mean, every action he takes seems to be aimed at getting really targeting somebody he doesn't like or somebody who's had a great grievance with. And I think in the end, the American people are better than that. Democrats are a long way from having a viable alternative. Hopefully we'll have one by 28. But I think in 2026, we're going to see that Trump is going to pay a real big price for the kind of administration he is trying to pull together, and for his just the nastiness, and also for these economic consequences of his policies. I agree with that. Look, first impressions matter. And Trump came in and as far as I can tell, his reality TV strategy was to show that he was an active president, following Sleepy Joe, as he calls Biden. And, he's been in our face every day doing these things, but he does it with such a vindictiveness. And Musk does the same thing, only he doesn't have Trump's Teflon. And so he's like scratching a blackboard, but Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Getting Trump to do all those ridiculous things about people 250 years old getting Social Security. All those things in the end are they're not, Musk isn't going to worry about who wins the Congress in 2026. That's going to affect Trump. And Trump's going to pay the price for what he's done. Uh, you know, again, to me, the tone of, I mean, look, you can disagree with people on policy. You can have really bitter fights on policy and direction of the country, but I don't see anything about the direction of the country and what Trump and Musk do. I see, you know, for Musk, it's a game. He's like taking over a company. He wants to fire everybody and put his, he thinks he's the richest man in the world, so he can handle the government. He can run the government. And for Trump, it's all retribution. He said he was going to be our retribution, not mine. I was going to be retributed against, but he was. But that's really what it is, and you see it in everything he does. And again, I think he's going to pay a price for that, uh, and particularly because his policies are crazy. And let's not forget this brilliant businessman went bankrupt 6 times, and he's doing for the country what he did for his businesses.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much indeed. We will see you next week.